Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Brad. For those of you guys that are new, I help people start or scale medical practices, and I myself own a multi-million-dollar practice. Today, let's talk about something one of you guys suggested on Twitter. It is, how the hell do you find a location? How would I recommend you go about finding a location, whether you're a specialist, primary care, whether you're doing a med spa, or maybe a TRT clinic? Let's go through how I evaluate where I started, where my locations are going, where my future locations are going, and how I would recommend it for all of you guys listening. All right, so why is today's topic so super important? Well, your lease, or if you're gonna buy, is usually your biggest fixed cost. It's your hardest decision also to undo. For those of you guys who have not rented yet, you will find that it is very rare to get a lease contract less than 5 years for commercial real estate. Now, here where I'm at in Austin, Texas, the commercial real estate market is absolute trash right now. I mean, I think nationwide, it's one of the worst markets for commercial real estate. That's how I was able to get a 3+3 lease. When I call it that, what I mean is that I have a 3-year lease and that at that 3-year option, I can renew for another 3 years. Now, the reason I do it that way for these small subsequent offices, not my first office, but the second ones, is my goal is to grow the hell out of it so that I can move on from that place within that 6 years and get to a much bigger location. Here's the thing though, following my framework on how I think through this is going to be repeatable. It's going to be actual things that you can look at when you're starting or scaling your medical practice and how you can avoid common traps that a lot of you guys may or may not potentially fall into in the future. All right, the first thing is that the best location maybe not the prettiest building. It might be the most reliable, like patient flow. It might be the best unit economics in terms of rent or staffing or payer mix. Best is going to be highly subjective here because the most expensive, amazing place could be a noose around your neck. I mean, it could be horrible if you're paying an insane amount of rent. I mean, here in Austin, if you go to like the most prime location possible, you're looking at upwards of $55 a square foot. Think how insane that would be. I mean, to put that in perspective, a 2,000 square foot office, which is not usually usable for 2,000 square feet, would be almost $10,000 a month. That is just insane. That's hard to be profitable. All right, so the first thing I look at whenever I'm thinking buy versus rent is what stage is my company at, okay? If real estate is very, very expensive, it's hard to buy in that location. I think that if you're starting out, I'm a big fan of renting. Just like when you take your very first contract for your job, if you're not going straight into private practice, I would highly encourage you to rent for your first location of where you live because you're probably not going to be there 3 to 5 years from now. And the same thing with your business. If you do this right, you're going to blow the hell out of this and you're going to get so big that you're going to have to move to a second location. In the very beginning, you want to keep your overhead low. Start small. Get a location that will quote unquote do for now, but is good enough, and just get that proof of concept going. You know, in technology, they have a saying called MVP, the minimal viable product. And I think of it the same way whenever you're starting a practice. Unless you just got a ton of cash that you're sitting on, you want to start with an MVP, maybe sublease from someone. Maybe get like, instead of a 2,000 square foot office, start with a 3-year lease, or maybe even a 5-year lease if you have to, of a smaller location, maybe 1,500, 1,200 square feet. I look at the unit economics of where am I at? Am I in the growth phase? Every dollar is insanely precious. Then I don't want to put all that down to buying. I want to put that towards renting. Buying is hella expensive. I mean, it takes forever to buy. For example, let's say I was going to go buy a new location for my first spot. Well, unless it's second generation, meaning that it was already a medical practice and I just need to like slap lipstick on it, like paint, maybe new lights, those kind of things. Unless it's that, I'm going to have to buy it, which buying it then to get the mortgage to close on it is going to take at least 60 days, I would imagine. I mean, I don't know if you can get that deal done for quicker than 60 days, assuming you're getting a commercial loan. You can't start construction during those 60 days. You got to do your due diligence. The bank has to do theirs. So there you are, 2 months delayed. Then let's say it's not second generation, just lipstick. Now you've got to move some walls. You got to get permits. Oh my God, that's going to take another few months. Then you've got to get a construction loan if you're taking out a construction loan. Then you've got to build the darn thing. I mean, if you buy, you're not moving in within probably 9 months, best case scenario. I would only look at buying if just the location is just insanely good or you have so much cash that you know you just want to be at that location. That's a mature practice. You're not going to get most likely any bigger at that space. Outside of that, rent. Please rent for your locations. All right, the biggest myth, number one, that I talk to a lot of you guys whenever I consult with y'all is that I need to be near a hospital if I'm going to win, if I'm going to get big. This is a maybe, deep into maybe category. All right. If you rely on the hospital for a lot of ancillary services, like if they're the only place in town to get blood work done and you're not going to offer labs, yeah, it'd be nice to have it right across the street. Or if they're the only mammogram or imaging center literally right across the street, that's worth something. That's worth a lot to be right next to them. Also, if you're around a lot of other consultants and need a lot of other consultants, then the hospital definitely can be an amazing place to be. However, is it always the smartest place? No. If you're going to be a med spa, sometimes that is the absolute wrong place to be. I mean, people are going there because they're sick. As a med spa, you want a wellness vibe. You want a wellness aesthetic to go from good to great. Usually, you want to be somewhere else, somewhere outside of that like all medical area. You want to be closer to anything else that is wellness and gives that luxury vibe. For there, you want to look towards residential density, the housing mix, the population of what types of demographics are there. You want a higher level of income that's in that area. And then obviously you want to look at competitor saturation. I think a lot of you guys get scared if there's a competitor literally right next door. When I opened my very first practice location, there was literally a primary care one floor down from me. At first I was a little scared. I was like, oh man, is this going to be a big problem? Because there's literally a primary care right below me. But she's been there for 25 years. She has literally no openings in her schedule. Not only that, but then I had one of you guys email me, well, Brad, but I'm scared. What if I get sued because there's another same competitor in the building? Well, you can get sued for absolutely anything. And this is not legal advice, obviously, but anyone can sue you at any time for any ridiculous reason. Just like there's no non-competes anymore, but you can still get sued for it. Now, the lawsuit's probably going to drop. Again, not legal advice, but the lawsuit's probably going to get dropped, but you're going to spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 defending yourself until a judge throws that out. You're unlikely to get sued in that scenario. Who is going to get sued potentially is if the landlord has a non-compete of like, hey, I'm not going to allow another primary care in this building in the other primary care that they sign the lease. And if they sign another primary care, yeah, that landlord could get sued. But you getting sued? Probably not. Look at your competition, see how far out they are booked in the future. I think it's actually a huge benefit if, let's say you're a dermatologist, if there's a beautiful dermatology clinic right down the street, maybe one or two of them, if they're booked out, that's great. That means the demand is there. There's a lot of other things that I've heard about. There's a GI group that I know of that looks for specific things. I mean, they look for if the grocery store is going in, like here in Texas, there's an H-E-B. If they're going in there, then they know that's going to be a place that H-E-B's done their success and they're going to move in. Other things is like, believe it or not, a Chick-fil-A factor. I was talking to a huge PE-backed urology group and they go off of Chick-fil-A locations. If there's going to be a freaking Chick-fil-A coming into the area, or a new one, then they are probably going to be fine to open a new location in that area. That's insane. I mean, but they do a lot of research to know demographics, busyness. And I think it's just interesting that sometimes you see these like odd things that private equity will put ties to, like grocery stores or Chick-fil-A's. Should you put that? No, you shouldn't. But you should look at demographics and they're looking at growth. If there's enough growth in that area to support a new grocery store, a new huge investment like a Chick-fil-A that probably takes $2 or $3 million to build it, then the odds are is that it may support enough people for another practice in that area because so many people are moving to that area. Okay, so where should you start with now that we've kind of gotten into this discussion? I mean, the first thing is I would say, okay, Brad, what is going to be your model going forward? For example, if you're primary care, family medicine, internal medicine, just like me, I mean, you need convenience, parking, visibility, easily scheduling. You need a strong residential base, or you need a good work base. Like for me, my main office is literally right next to Amazon, Indeed, Facebook, TikTok, all these freaking young, healthy to middle-aged people. I'm literally like right next to tens of thousands of workers. That's great. During lunch, if they need something, they want to come in for their high blood pressure, diabetes check, I can easily do that. You need to be right where the patients either live or work. Not to put my own specialty down, but for primary care, the bar's set a little bit lower. You don't need this like amazing aesthetic and absolutely everything else. You just need to be available, convenient, clean, safe, and you need to make it very easy for people to get in and get out. People are less likely to put up with this convoluted parking garage. You got to especially know your area. Like here in Austin, Texas, nobody's going to want to validate or, pay for a parking garage and then validate that ticket to get their money back. No, that's not happening. Now, if you're out in LA, New York City, somewhere else and more central in a much larger city like Chicago, totally different demographic. You need to know your area. But for subspecialty, like let's say you're cardio, GI, derm, ortho, Maybe you're more referral driven. Proximity to other specialties and imaging can matter, can absolutely matter, especially cardio, GI, if you need to be close to the hospital. So for those, I would say you need to be closer to the things that you're going to utilize. If you're going to utilize a surgery center, you own the surgery center, you want those close together. If you're going to utilize an imaging center, you want to be close to the imaging centers if you can. If you're going to be more cash pay, concierge, med spa, maybe TRT, weight loss, demographics matter so much more than hospital adjacency. For these, you need to look at the aesthetics of the vibe. I mean, your actual location needs to look nice. It needs to look welcoming. It needs to look more premium than quote unquote just a regular primary care model. The same thing with like TRT, know your demographics, okay? If you're in a parking lot in a strip mall of nothing but, no offense, but a lot of like Hobby Lobbies and Michaels and things like that, that TRT clinic may do well, but the odds are it's probably not going to do very well. But if you're next to, I don't know, a golf outlet or something else, it's probably going to do a little bit better if it's where more men are more likely to come into that strip mall. And the other thing is that I always do the wife test. I've talked about it before. Would my wife feel comfortable if she broke down in this parking lot at 10 p.m.? That's like the back of the napkin first thing, like litmus test that I do. And if the answer is no, hell no. I'm not even giving it the time of day because I want it to be lit. I want it to look safe. I want it to look good from the outside. The other problem that I've seen with some of these people that are trying to go to strip malls is, depending on your area, if there's a major like artery, a big road that's driving from point A to point B, if you have to exit and then turn around again because your building just misses that exit and you can't easily turn in, what a disaster, dude. No one is coming to your location. It's going to be a flop. People need convenience if you're going to be in a location like that. Now, this is not necessarily true for specialists because specialists, as I'll get into in the future and here in a little bit, specialists, people are more likely to drive to you. But if you're doing more TRT, primary care, something aesthetics based where it's just get in and get out, you need convenience. The next most popular question that I get is, how do I define the area that I'm targeting? Well, once I find my primary location, if I'm thinking about maybe getting a secondary location, or if I'm looking at competition, primary care, I would suggest 10 to 15 minutes. Most everywhere, people are going to be willing to go 15 minutes. Once you get about 15 minutes or beyond, a significant number of people are going to be like, let me see if there's another primary care nearby or another pediatrician nearby. For specialty stuff, I think it's about twice this. I think it's 20 to 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes if you're more rural. But this is where, when you're doing your demographic, like, okay, I'm opening an ortho clinic. How many other orthos are around me? I would draw a 40, 45 minute circle and say, who are all the other ortho clinics in this area, in this radius? And that's my competition. The other thing, cash pay based, could be a little bit even larger than that, depending on how subspecialized you do. If you're doing blepharoplasties, or if you're doing some very, very particular like plastic surgery things, it could be even much larger than that if you're like a hand surgeon. The more specialized you are, the wider your net's going to be. For example, you're doing advanced endoscopies. Yeah, your net's going to be huge. It's not going to be 10 to 15 minutes. It's probably going to be closer to an hour around. Who's your competition? Now, then I start looking at, okay, once I got my ring for my primary care, 15 minutes, I want to go beyond 15 minutes. Then I start evaluating, okay, what's the population like? What's the growth like? What are the age demographics and distributions there? For example, when I was looking at a certain location, there's a location where there's a ton of growth, but it's a ton of growth for young families. For me in primary care, it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to go to that area when there's a lot of like 32-year-olds that are having young babies. Those 32-year-olds, or maybe less than 40, they don't have a lot of medical problems. They're not coming to the doctor very often. Now, if I was starting up a pediatric clinic or a family med that was a full service family med, hell yeah, I'd be all into that location. But that doesn't make a lot of sense for me. So I didn't go to that area. The other thing you could look at is your income bands. I mean, any commercial realtor, when you're looking, should be able to pull these demographics. You can go to the census website. You can pull these demographics if you'd like. Look at the income bands to make sure that you're supporting your area. Like, for example, where I'm at, there's one big road, I-35. And if you get west of I-35, the demographics are easily 20 to 30% more income than if you go east of I-35. Now, the people east of I-35 are lovely, but if I only have one location to open, which one am I going to open? Just west of 35, where people have free cash flow that are usually better, can pay their bills, maybe have more insurance, or the one east of that where there's not as much as that. The other thing to look at, like I've talked about, is number of competitors and how booked out they are. It doesn't matter how many competitors you are. If I have 10 other primary care competitors, which I believe was actually true whenever I opened in a 15-mile radius, doesn't matter. They were all booked up. I was busy as could be. And within like 9 months of me opening my clinic, or maybe 10 months, I hired another physician to join me. The only thing that matters is not only number of competitors, but how freaking booked out are they? Another plus is if there's just an insane amount of residential developments under construction. So I opened my second location in a place called Leander, Texas, small-ish town, but holy crap. If you drive down 183, a highway, you just see nothing but like thousands of houses being built. And a lot of them are 55 and up in retirement communities. Hell yes, I want to move into that area. So what I would say for this is don't choose a pin, choose a radius. Know your radius. Primary care, I would say 15 minutes. Specialty, I would say double that, 30 minutes to maybe 40 minutes, and even more than that, maybe an hour if you're advanced endoscopy, hand surgeon, super specialized plastic surgeon, your radius gets even bigger. The other thing that I try to look for whenever I'm opening a new location is what is the payer mix? I mean, there are some payers that pay us way dramatically better than others. Like, for example, there's a part of town where United Healthcare is huge and another part of town where Blue Cross is better. Well, Blue Cross pays me like 20% better when I first started than United Healthcare. Why would I choose to open in the very United Healthcare area? No, I'm going to choose to open where Blue Cross is very heavy. Always remember that when you're negotiating a commercial lease, so much more is negotiable, and read the fine details. I mean, the location number 5 that we signed, the landlord tried to sneak a lot of stuff in there. Basically, if the freaking air conditioner broke, that I was responsible for repairing it and replacing it. Hell no, that's a 20-year-old air conditioning unit. I'm not replacing that for you. Struck all that out. Also, negotiate something called tenant improvement, TI. How much tenant improvement are you going to get if you have to do construction on it? Most of the time, you're not going to get any unless you stay there for 5 years. But usually, a significant percent of your build-out cost should be covered by this tenant improvement. The next thing that I think a lot of you guys will ask me about is, well, Brad, what about signage? Does signage matter? And I would say 15 years ago, I would have said, hell yeah, I think it matters. But I don't think it matters near as much as you think today, unless you have an extremely prime time sign. I mean, just like one where it's like 1 million people a month are going by this location. All right, that volume matters. But if you have a smaller street, you're just going to put your name like on a tiny corner of a building. Everyone's Google mapping it anyways. I mean, I can look at our demographics is the majority of people that are coming to our practice have either been here before, know how to get here, or they're Google mapping it straight to our office. Doesn't matter. Google's taking them literally right to our front door. I like a good signage, but I don't think you necessarily pay a massive premium for the signage unless it just makes sense and it's so much traffic, like 1 million cars a month going through. All right, maybe then it makes sense. I'm also a big fan of going there during the day whenever you're like testing out when you're going to be open. For my 5th location, we were between these 2 locations. And one of the locations, I ended up going there. I was like, okay, I'm going to go there at 8 a.m. I'm going to see what the traffic looks like. I didn't even realize that right behind this building where I was going to actually buy it instead of leasing it, right behind it was a daycare center. And I didn't realize that daycare center, to get to it, you have to go through our parking lot potentially to get to that daycare center. Holy crap. The amount of traffic that was going through that parking lot, the wear and tear on my parking lot that I would have to pay to resurface and do everything was horrible because they had hundreds of kids that were being dropped off at this massive daycare facility. Think of the wear and tear. Think of how difficult it'd be for patients to find a parking spot and get in and out because there was so much parking going on at the daycare that they were all flooding into my parking lot or my potential parking lot. That was just one of the reasons why I didn't go with that place, but go there during the day, during like a busy time, either 8, 5, or noon, sometime when it's going to be busy, and see what is the parking situation. The other last thing that I will talk about is just think about convenience. If you were driving there as a patient, how would you like to go there? If it's a pain in the butt to like turn in and out and just it's in a bad part of town, even though the building looks nice, I would say no. There was another place that I was looking at that actually looked nice, but you had to technically turn left and there was no protected left. It was a disaster to get into. Then it was like behind a Sonic and a Whataburger, and it was just like in between these 2 buildings. And then right next to it was a freaking like metal recycling plant that just smelled horrible and was so freaking loud. Even though it was a absolute stellar, beautiful building, there's no way I'm renting that. It's just not a good location for me. Don't be blinded by this. I mean, I was almost blinded by the price. I'll be honest. I was looking at it and I was like, damn, this is like 30% cheaper than any of the other options. I mean, that alone, I could get 30% more space. What an incredible thing. It wouldn't be worth it Patients would show up being like, what the hell's the deal with this? I'm between like a bunch of fast food. Now we've got a metal factory behind here that's like, I'm here grinding and welding all day. The other thing is, know if you're going to be getting most of your patients via acquisition from the hospital or marketing channels. If you're going to be getting it mostly from marketing, like for example, if you're a pain management doctor, most of your patients are probably not coming from the hospital. You don't necessarily need to be close to the hospital, but you need to have a good location that is clean and easy to get in and out of, but you need to learn then how to market the hell out of that practice, because that's how you're going to pull patients in. It's not going to be, oh yeah, Dr. Pain Management right across the street, go see him. No, that's not how you're getting the majority of your referrals. All right, you guys, don't sign your lease until you map the drive times, count competitors, check their availability, value growth. How many rooftops, employers, how many new houses or how many new employers are coming into this area? If you can, confirm the payers and employer reliability in that area. Look at parking, turns, visibility, signage. And then lastly, look at the actual building itself. Is it Class A or Class B or Class C? Does it look very nice? Give it the wife test at like 10 p.m. Are they going to feel safe in the parking lot? Think of how your staffing is going to come there. Are they going to have to come from far away, or can you realistically hire staff nearby? Before you commit, run the scorecard, and you'll know if you're buying growth or buying a headache, or renting growth or renting a headache. Thank you guys so much for following along. I'll see you guys on the next one. That's how I determine where I go for all of my 5 locations. I'll see y'all next time. Thanks a lot.